Good morning, everyone. Absolutely lovely to be back after a break. And did we enjoy the break more, or did we, I can see Joanne Saldana. Lovely to see you here this morning. Good morning, Team Funky Rainbow. You say good to be back after a break. Absolutely delighted to really be back after the break. Did we enjoy the quiet of the break? Well, I think Team Funky Rainbow's answer is a loud resounding no. The quiet, the buzz and the noise and all the goings on, before the bazaar, and just really that sort of energy that it brings to our week. We really, really missed that completely, and we are more than delighted to be back this morning with brand new bazaar. The theme this time is an interesting one, non-fiction books, and it's really wonderful how many books of, excellent books of non-fiction have come out for children and young adults in the last couple of years. So this bazaar, of course, going to showcase some of the best ones, the best published books across the last, decade or so. As always, all the books up on our website, www.funkyrainbow.com. And, you need to click the tab that says Bazaar, and the drop-down menu will have a tab called Nonfiction. All the books that we have put into this bazaar are going to be there, of which we often are able to recommend just a couple of them. Divya Menon, rather Avyukt and Ameya Nair saying, good morning, everyone. We missed you all. We did too, Avyukt and Ameya. And I can't tell you, almost instinctively that Diwali morning, which is a holiday for all of us at the office, I'm sure everybody was mentally thinking of what they were going to be doing at the bazaar at that specified time, talking about books non-stop at home. But thank you so much for joining in. And more than anything else, we have to say before we get started, Avyukt and Ameya Nair, thank you so much for that fabulous cake you sent our way. It was just such an unexpected treat, and if you can see all of us grinning away from one end of our cheek to the other, it's that beautiful, colorful chocolate cake that has given us, all our smiles and cheer. We're on a sugar high. Thank you so much. Anita Venugopal saying, good morning from Devansh, another child whom we missed meeting at the bazaar last week. Lovely that you're back again. Lovely. The buzz of the bazaar is really, really energizing. I have to say, those photos that are going up on the screen were a completely unexpected treat from Avyukt and Ameya Nair, who had so sweetly sent us a box full of love, in the form of chocolate. Of course, Talcan Islands. Of course, from the Talcan Islands. Muttama tells me that from the Talcan Islands. Okay, so from the Talcan Islands is what Sham says it is. Avyukt and Ameya Nair, we have to clarify whether it is the Talcan Islands or the Talcan Islands. Is it still there? We are 6 people at the office, and we just pounced on your cake and ate it up. We needed the sugar high to get us through to this bazaar in the morning. Of course, we almost sent the cake back, like we said on our social media posts. The guy who came and rang the bell, we were 100% sure it was for somebody else, and almost shooed him away, saying, no, this is not for us. Please find the correct address where you have to deliver it. Thank God he was persistent, and what he did? He just whipped out this beautiful orange card, which we're putting up on screen at the moment, and we immediately knew that it had come to us all the way from the Talcan Islands or the Talcan Islands. And there you can see that lovely card. Thank you so much, Avyukt and Ameya Nair. It was just an incredible, treat for all of us at Funky Rainbow, and we are so, the beautiful cake that the master chefs conjured up. My God, if we were not that hungry, we just wouldn't eat it. So pronounces as Talcan Island. This is Avyukt, and I'm so glad I got that pronunciation right. Not Charm and his sophisticated Talcan Islands, basically, right? No, he has a nice explanation for it, though. He says he thought that it was the Talcan Islands because you probably talk a lot. We're very sure of that already. But thank you so much once again, our young friends. We really, really, appreciate the fact that we have made these wonderful friendships with, so many young people out there, so many parents, so many teachers and librarians. This is the true gift of the bazaar. So thank you so much once again. And with a very cheery smile, thanks to the wonderful cake, we're off to a start to our non-fiction bazaar. We also have a ski. Yeah, sorry, there seems to be some glitch. Yes.
See, this mic is that one. I think it is on.
Can you just give us a minute? I think there seems to be some problem with the mic. Could I just check it a minute and then resume the show? Is it the Realtek microphone?
No.
Then?
The USB.
Oh, audio. Again, just give us 2 minutes. I think there seems to be some slight audio glitch, although I can see many good mornings. So I'm just going to continue saying hello and hi to everyone, and I hope you can hear us. Munmun Mitra Das, such a pleasure to see you here this morning. I really, love, all of us actually at Funky Rainbow really love connecting with all of you like this. Yeah, I can see that thumbs up sign from Sham saying we're good to go. David Williams saying, haha, I bet that chocolate cake did not live long in the FR office. Certainly not if I'd been there. With you, without you, food is demolished at Funky Rainbow, as are new books that come our way. As a trained librarian, I'm intrigued by the title Library Love this week. Oh, all right. Well, Library Love, I'm not sure where you're seeing the Library Love, tag, David, but I'm glad you did ask that question. Because Library Love is the program that Funky Rainbow runs with schools. It's our reading program, that's what it's called. And this is to introduce contemporary Indian writers and illustrators for children to schools by way of exciting reading programs. I'm not sure where the words Library Love are popping up, but Muttama says that might have been a glitch, but it's a happy glitch. Definitely. We're glad that we could tell you about this program, Library Love. It has been a bit slow with the schools this year because of the pandemic, and, we're not in as many schools as we would like to be, and as many that we were in last year. I think Avyukt saying now it is okay. I'm glad that it's okay, and I'm glad that the audio stream is audible now. So yes, we're not in as many schools as we were in last year, and there's something, that pleasure of being in the midst of so many children is simply, I just have no words to describe the fun of, the excitement and the absolute pleasure of helping children discover newer and newer books by Indian creators. We really wish as a team that things will go back to normal in the next academic year and we can be back where we are happiest belonging. Of course, this is new family, all of you out here. We've made so many friends in this pandemic year, which is really the high point of a rather challenging year. So, of course, before I start off, I wanted to also tell you about, a discount deal that we've made available, starting yesterday, which is called the 2020 deal. Now, the 2020 deal means there's 20% off on everything on our site, provided you pick up books over 2,000 rupees. And believe me, the books that we're recommending today, the lovely clutch of nonfiction books that we're recommending today, and some nonfiction books, often a little bit more pricey than fiction ones, you would, want to make use of this offer. It's valid between the 20th of November to the 20th of December. The 2020 offer, you can see the, sign up on your screen. It's also up on our social media pages. Guys, just go for it and make sure that 2020 closes on a real book high for each and every one of you. So, of course, and with that, I, move on to the Nonfiction Bazaar. And I want to say that, when we were, even when we started out Funky Rainbow so many years ago in 2013, we typically, when we say books for children, there are, tons and tons of books of fiction, because often, one tends to think that these beautiful flights of imagination are what children really enjoy, and they indeed do. Children and adults, enjoying books of fiction. But in the course of these years, we have realized often, and when we do our pop-ups at schools and at different places, in the country and within our city, Bangalore, we have often met young readers who are really energized by and really, keen, to know about real world stuff. There's possibly science, there's history, there's nature, there's environment. There are just so many themes, and we've often found in all these events, even if there's 75% of the kids coming to us picking up books of fiction, we have found, children coming up to us saying that, they want real world stuff and they find it more appealing than made up stories. So, when we started to curate, it was really exciting to find that there did exist a treasure trove of books of nonfiction for children and young adults in the Indian children's publishing context. In fact, some of the books that we've found and discovered and put on our shelves across the years have been so informative, with lots of well-chosen text, with attractive illustrations, and absolutely doing away with that general perception that a book of nonfiction is possibly a dry, dusty tome. I mean, they're really the books of nonfiction that have come out, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, have been colorful, inventive works of art themselves. And we hope to introduce you to some of them in the course of this bazaar. So I will, of course, start off with my first recommendation for the day, which is a series of books for young readers, we'd say 5+-year-olds. This series of books from Tulika called the First Look Science series. So there's Gitti's story, which is the story of Earth. There's Bundi's story, which is the story of water. There is Dhuli's story, which is the story of air. This is Biji's story, which is the story of a seed. And there's Bhumi's story, which is the story of Earth, planet Earth in space. Now, what's exciting about most of the nonfiction that we're actually recommending today is that it's narrative nonfiction, which means they are narrating nonfiction like stories. I mean, this is not fictional made up stories, but nonfiction presented in an attractive narrative form that makes it really appealing for young readers. And this set of books, which actually began as completely, I mean, they were put together by, the students of Srishti. It was a classroom project, that the Srishti School of Design in Bangalore, which is one of India's, prominent schools of design, they undertook this as a classroom project to convey through images 5 scientific concepts for children. And what they did, was to pick these themes, the themes, or the themes of nature largely, and, took space, earth, water, air, and, Earth's surface as their themes. And in each one of these, for instance, in the book, which is BG's story, BG is a super seed, and she dashes off on a super ride, zooming over icy lands, hot deserts, swooshing across rivers. And she's a tough little seed who loves adventure. But what BG likes most is to be back on soft soil. So in the course of her adventure, of course, you are learning some scientific concepts. And of course, each one of these books, like I said, put together by the Srishti School students, Anushka Kalro and Rajashi Ray are the writers of the book, and illustrated by Sankalina Nath and Shubhangi Goel. As you can see, really attractive. Archana Atri, delightful to see you. Hi, Funkies. Big hi to you from all of us at Funky Rainbow. As you can see, little text, lots of, large illustrations, realistic illustrations that really, that sort of convey the journey of the traveling seed. Like, and in Bhumi's story, which is a very, very popular book, Bhumi, our gentle planet, plays games with her friends, the moon. They're tracing star patterns in the sky. They're watching comets whiz by, and they have decided that space is one of the most exciting places to live in. So as you can see, narrative non-fiction, basically, which means fiction conveyed in the form of stories, especially so that the youngest of children really, get both, information and pleasure out of reading these books. Each one of these priced at 135 rupees. We'd highly recommend this on each and every, home and schools bookshelves, because most definitely your children are, learning this at school, learning each one of these science concepts at school. Published by Tulika Publishers. Our next recommendation for the day is a lovely book of art, non-fiction art called Do. Do, published by Tara Publishers, sort of the creative concept done by Geeta Wolf, the publisher at Tara, and the illustrations, the Varli style illustrations in the book by Ramesh Hengadi and Shantaram Dhadpe. Now, what is Do all about? It's a set of gorgeous action pictures rendered in a traditional Varli style. Varli is an art form, that comes to us from Western India. And it is a simple yet dynamic art form where people, when you look at the pictures, and in fact, when you look at the cover of the book, you can see that it looks like people are constantly on the move and doing something or the other. In fact, we would say that all the pictures in this book, the Varli illustrations in these books, are like our present day pictograms. Now, children, we find, are very easily drawn to this art form because there's so much to explore in, each of the pages. For instance, even in this book, this can just be, so there are these single pictures. There are these pictures with just single words. For instance, this first spread that I'm showing you says pull. The word up there is just pull. Now you can treat this like a picture book. You can treat this like a book with which your children can learn verbs. The next spread say farm and grow. But what they can also do is to discover stories on each one of these spectacular pages. And, so stories, one, about maybe what life is like in this little village, that is the focus of the book. Or perhaps just stories that they can conjure up from their own imaginations. See, that's the pleasure of a good book of nonfiction, really, right? It can tell you so many real life stories, but it can also spark your imagination to come up with all kinds of exciting stories. This is a wonderful resource book, which can be used both as a storytelling resource and as an art resource. I mean, this intricate form of painting, the Varli form, lending itself to so much creativity by way of art with your children. So this one, like I said, published by Tara and priced at 200 rupees. Our next book for the day is again a sweet little gem of a book called Little Cloud's Quest. The title, of course, gives away what the book is all about. This is by Stephen Aitken and Sylvia Sekundar and illustrated Sudeshna Moitra. You say, how can I get it? Our website, www.funkyrainbow.com, has a tag called the Buzzaar, and once you press the tab called the Buzzaar, there's a drop-down menu, and one of the drop-downs will say nonfiction. You can click on that and you can find this book. You can order it online, but there's also a link that's going up which you can click to pick up copies of the book. We typically recommend 25 odd books depending on how much time we have at the Buzzaar, but there's usually always at least 75 or 80 books on that theme put up in every specific Buzzaar. Hi, Shantanu Datta Gupta. I love that hi gang. It is indeed a lovely big gang of people and book lovers, and we're so glad you're here, part of this gang. Back to Little Cloud's Quest. As you can see, a lovely little book about a little cloud. And I just love the way this one opens. You see, this is the way it opens up. And I think, forever at Funky Rainbow, we're telling kids, don't imagine that books open and close only in one particular way. There's no requirement at all, and they can open, they can close, they can be accordion style books, and across different bazaars we have tried to recommend to you different styles of books. So there is a certain excitement to discover even that in the book. Now, this is, of course, about a little cloud. And, the day she was born, what she wanted to do was to look around and set off on an adventure. And she does. And she decides to go on a journey to find friends. And who helps little cloud? It's wind who helps little cloud high up in the sky to travel to distant lands, meet new friends. And for the young readers out there reading the book, in the course of this lovely journey, discover some exciting cloud facts. As you can see, very, very beautifully formatted. You can see that the text is in swirls, sort of, conveying the windy feel. And there's a little story, adventure tucked away in the book, but also some wonderful facts about clouds and weather and, the different shapes of the clouds, just the kind of things that young readers would very much enjoy. This one's published by Katha and priced at 150 rupees. And we would recommend it for readers as young as 4-5 years old. Our next set of books this morning is a delightful little pair of books. And we have used this, and I know Muttama has, sort of recommended this to hundreds of schools, teachers, librarians, and children, because this little set, like really teeny tiny books, focus on two important aspects of nature and two important aspects of our lives. There's let's plant trees and there's let's catch the rain. The author, Vinod Lal Ishwar, has a most interesting bio. He's a creative director, he's a garden store entrepreneur, he's a furniture designer, and he's an obsessive tree planter. Gosh, if these guys write books, why won't they be exciting? He, of course, is also, I remember, once when we were talking to him, he said he's an organic farmer and a filmmaker. Now, what's Let's Plant Trees about? And this is really for the youngest readers. Vaishali Shroff saying, hello, Team FR. What a pleasure to see you here this morning, Vaishali. Just, delighted that you've made time to join us at the Bazaar. So Let's Plant Trees, a book that is largely visual. We'd say it would work for children as young as 3, maybe even 4 years. It's not that there's that much text to read, but we think the concept of this book may appeal to 3-4-year-olds onwards. Lovely childlike, illustrations that literally play with the shape of the tree, combining text and, combining illustration to create an imaginative little book about, why trees are so important in our lives, why we should plant them, and why we should celebrate them. Of course, inspired by the success of this one, Vinod created the next one, which is Let's Catch the Rain, equally appealing. Again, as you can see, very, very simple text. Very, very little text and very, sort of line art kind of illustrations. Now, in this book, he chooses to talk about the big monsoon clouds, and the message that he's trying to send us through this book about clouds and rain is that rainwater is free. Rainwater is pure, rainwater is precious, so we've got to save it. So there's Let's Catch the Rain and Let's Plant Trees, 2 lovely little, gems, which I think children, the youngest of children, will enjoy thoroughly. Both published by Tulika and priced at 75 rupees each. As you can see, lots and lots of nature books. Obviously that's the kind of nonfiction that really appeals to young readers, and hence publishers doing tons of nature books for the youngest of readers. And here my next recommendation is a complete favorite of every single one of us at FR. We've recommended it to you in as many bazaars as we can, because this wonderful book, The Sea in a Bucket, by which is an Avehi Abacus. Avehi Abacus is an organization that works with schools in Bombay. They have created this book along with illustrator Deepa Balsavar, and it's really the nicest possible way to explain what happens to water right from the time that it comes out of your tap till the time that it goes to meet the sea. Deepa Balsavar, with her spectacular illustrative style, and as you can see, really detailed, style, the illustrations telling the story of a young boy called Sonu who sets out to fill his bucket with water. But this trip, Vaishali Shroff saying, I love The Sea in a Bucket. It is just a brilliant and fantastic book. Yes, Joanne Saldana, absolutely the right word. It's simply a fantastic book, which every single one of you must have. And its price, so attractive at 70 rupees. This book ought to be, reaching at least 1 million homes. And if half of that million came from Funky Rainbow, we would be utterly delighted that, like water making its way to the sea, this wonderful book has made its way to houses here, there, and everywhere, or schools here, there, and everywhere via Funky Rainbow. So what happens to Sonu? He's just going to fill a bucket of water, and he then sets off on an adventure which takes him around the lake, to the river, up the mountains, and down to the sea. Great big bonus at the end of the book, and I'm not going to give that away, is this magnificent poster, which I'm wondering if I should open or let it, pick up the book and look at that poster. Hi, Auntie, I'm Amritayu, says Munmun's son. Amritayu, how lovely to see you here this morning, Amritayu. We've missed you a couple of weeks, and I think you've been busy, but we're delighted that you've made your way back to our bazaar. If you don't have this wonderful book, and I think your mom's picked up some spectacular books for you, really, but if you don't have this one, it's a must on your bookshelf. So this gorgeous poster tracing the journey of water from the bucket, from when you open the tap to the time it reaches the sea, published by Ekalavya and priced at 70 rupees. Our next book this morning is such a gorgeous book simply because of its art. I mean, over and above what it gives you, over and above what you learn from it, you simply need it because its art is just so spectacular. This one, called The Alphabet of Animals and Birds, created and illustrated by that outstanding artist Prabha Malya, is what you actually, in fact, when you open the book, you think, I mean, when you sort of look at it first, you think it's all about the alphabets, teaching you alphabets through animals. You know what it is? It's fantastic collective nouns to describe animals: a memory of elephants, a cartload of monkeys, a mischief of mice, a cohort of zebras, a parliament of owls. And I think we definitely prefer to have a parliament of owls at the moment, frankly. Joanne Saldana says, love, love, love this. Prabha Malya has done such a delightful job. Yes, you can simply just revel in these gorgeous illustrations and have some unbelievable animal alphabet fun, learning so many wonderful collective nouns along the way. Really, it's a book that, maybe it's teaching you some collective nouns, but it's the illustrations. They are so immersive, so beautiful, that the book can leave you spellbound for hours and hours and maybe days and years. In fact, this book, won the prize for best book of nonfiction at the Hindu Young World Good Books Awards. I'm sorry, not nonfiction. It won the award for best illustrated book a couple of years ago, and it was so well deserved. It's a handsome hardback edition. This one is priced at 295 rupees and published by Red Turtle. Really a cool, exciting, and lovely way to introduce children to collective nouns. David Williams, A Mischief of Mice. I've learned something new about my own language today. And as always, all the way from India, a country that's adopted and made the language its own in so many glorious ways. Delighted that you did learn that collective noun, David. Our next book is, again, one of our favorite authors at Funky Rainbow, author cum illustrator at Funky Rainbow, Manjula Padmanabhan's Mama, What is the Night? It's so gorgeously designed, this book, sort of, what is the night? It's a question that a little girl asks of the creatures of the night. For instance, the earthworm, the owl, the firefly, and she has glowing answers that come to her in the form of rhyme from each one of these pages. What is special, especially this excellent reverse printing where everything is in black and the text and the illustrations in beautiful color and in white, making it a wonderful book to explore. We'd call it like a fun fact book to explore what really is the night. I mean, it's full of nature facts and striking visuals that really, let's say, illuminate an alternate world of creatures that inhabit the night. Manjula Padmanabhan and her deft poetry, rhymes, absolutely making you chuckle and enjoy rhythmic cadences. One of the lovely poems, in this book is The Owl, and this is what it says. Oh, can you ever know the night? You need light so much for sight. When evening falls, you don't feel right. Well, do you or do you not feel right in the night? Is a lovely, explored in this wonderful book with striking visual images. A great way to talk of the concepts of day and night with children and also introduce them to different creatures of the night. This one, published by Tulika Publishers, we would recommend this for 5+-year-olds, priced at 175 rupees. And we really rarely get books that are done in reverse typesetting where everything is in black and the text is in another color, which is possibly white or blue in this book. This one priced at 175 rupees and available at special discounts at our as part of our 2020 offer. No special discounts on specific books at the bazaar, but we have this 2020 offer. Pick up books over 2,000 rupees and get 20% off. For an independent bookshop, that is a very, very large discount. Let me assure you of that. And we would be delighted if you made use of this excellent 2020 offer. Everything on the website is up on this offer, and the 2020 offer goes on between November 20th and December 20th of 2020. Our next set of books, and this is again two lovely little books from Katha. I'm recommending them jointly because of their, closely interlinked themes. This one, called The Earth Carer's Guide to Climate Change, is such a beautiful book of nonfiction, which encompasses so many bits and bytes of information. For instance, it begins with it begins with a poem by Muhammad Haji Saleh, and which is illustrated by Shafruddin. Now, what is the poem about? The poem is about the beauty of nature and our earth. There's a beautiful Gujarati folk song, all of this rendered in English. And why these poems? Why these songs? Why these little this spectacular photograph of the northern lights? And I know many of us would like to go and see these beautiful the northern lights. Now, each one of these trying to point you to the beauty of nature, and why must each one of us be an earth carer. Now, is it only full of songs and poems? No, not really. There's this beautiful Japanese folktale retold about how precious trees are to us and to this earth. It's such a lovely mishmash of things, of facts, of poems, of stories which are real stories, which are stories from real life, basically. Little bits and bytes of information on people who've spoken up for the planet. And in this case, they've chosen, Malala, and, really a lot of information about climate change. It's a great mishmash of a book, and we really think that this one from Katha, priced at 195 rupees, is a great resource for children, 6+ years of age. In the same series is this beautiful book, which again opens this way. I just love it when books open, very, very differently from what you expect. This one, called A Tree, has been adapted from a poem, and its art has been done by different tribal artists of India. What is the book about? And you can see this beautiful opening spread done Warli style. Just such, so few words, just one word saying this is a tree. Now, what does the book go on to do? It goes on to show you different kinds of trees. And the visual beauty of the books is stunning. I mean, tribal art in India, my gosh, how sophisticated their use of colors, their use of symmetry, the way they draw their lines, and the way they interpret reality, is just amazing. And this is a treasure trove that you really have to introduce to all your children. We must not grow up not being cognizant of our own brilliant artistic heritage. Now, what happens in the tree? It's, it focuses on a couple of trees in the beginning, but a tree then gets cut. And what happens? Why did the tree get cut? What can we do not to cut trees? And why should we not cut trees? Forms the crux of this beautiful book, illustrated in an indigenous artistic style. This one, in fact, works even for readers even younger than 4. I would imagine. I would think this would work for 3 to 4 year olds quite easily, and the Earth Carers one perhaps for 5 to 6 year olds. Two little precious books from Katha, each priced at 195 rupees and meant for our youngest readers. Muttama tells me that these books are so beautiful that they can even be shown to babies, because it's very, very good for their visual cognition to be able to see these shapes and colors. Our next book, this morning, is from a publisher whose work we really love, Kalpavriksh, and this one is called Critters Around Our Homes. Such a lovely title of a book, because well and truly, there are so many critters, that are just right around us. For instance, a gecko in the garden, maybe a moth, maybe a squirrel in your garden. We really don't have to travel far and wide to see some fascinating, wildlife, because a lot of the wild is right around us. So what does this book do? It takes you to and introduces you to some of the fascinating creatures that you can see right around your home. Now you can see this one is about squirrels. This spread about mongooses, and they've been so realistically and beautifully illustrated. The book has been written by Sanjay Sondhi and illustrated by Sushama Durve. Very, very, realistic illustrations that well and truly give you a peek into the wonderful world of nature without leaving the comfort of your home or your garden. A really, a treasure trove of a book to, especially children that love nature, so curious about nature. It's a great way for you to read up. For them to read up. We would recommend this for 7, plus year olds. But if children younger than that are interested, you can actually read up about these creatures and talk to them about it, showing them in and around your house. Priced at 150 rupees and published by Kalpavriksh. Our next lovely, lovely book, before I say a whole round of hi and hellos, is The Book of Beasts, and A to Z Rhyming Bestiary. My God, this is a book that to keep and read and reread across a lifetime, because M. Krishnan, who's written this collection of poems about different beasts, is truly, well and truly was one of India's most outstanding environmentalists. He's written extensively on the wild. He's written extensively on creatures that inhabit this planet. He's written, so many books on conservation, many of these for adults. And I know there's a excellent collection of essays that M. Krishnan has written. And I've had the pleasure of having him review for a magazine that, I used to work with very many years ago. The writing, my gosh, besides the beauty of the natural world that he conveys, the quality of writing really gives, a discerning reader goosebumps. And in this Book of Beasts, he has, or rather, I think it was his daughter, who has compiled out of his granddaughter, not daughter, has compiled from his writing some excellent poems that he had, and funny, playful, gentle, lovely poems that introduce you to different kinds of creatures, scientific, facts about these creatures, accompanied by wonderful illustrations. This one, really takes you, it's quirky verse, draws you into nature fabulously well. The thing is, these illustrations were all, you can see, how well the illustrations convey, there's a sense of humor in the illustrations. There's, it's also realistic. So exactly what these creatures look like. And there's very, very enjoyable verse accompanying it, all the writing, the illustration. Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj is saying, hi, super team at FR. Couldn't miss this date. Thank you so much. We're delighted that you always make a date with us on Saturday mornings. This one, both written and illustrated by M. Krishnan, one of India's foremost naturalists. I mean, he's no more. So this, book, a book that can be read across ages. You can read it out to a child as young as 2 or 3 because there's a sense of cadence, and they will in time process the names of the various creatures and their quirks growing up. But you could a child who's 6, a child who's 9, a teenager at 13, and all adults, it's a book that you would most definitely enjoy. So we'd really clearly say that this is a book meant for all ages, Book of Beasts, an A to Z rhyming bestiary published by Duckbill Books, priced at 450 rupees. For those of you who don't have it, it's a must have in your homes. I'm going to say a quick round of hellos to, so many of you who've joined us. It's lovely always to, to see how many of you, whether it's on Facebook or my friends on Instagram, it's just lovely how many of you join us every week, Saturday morning at the Buzzaar. For all of you watching us on Instagram, this is a live show and it goes on for 2 hours between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. We actually do an interview with an author, Kavita Kurian, saying, such gems. Thank you so much, FR. Love my Saturday mornings. Love it that you love them, Kavita. And thank you so much for those words of praise. Preeti Ramchandran, such a lovely collection of non-fiction, Team FR. Apt topic pick, especially for a mum like you whose child just loves non-fiction. Thank you, Preeti Ramchandran. We really missed you. And please send out a big, we're sending out as a team a big hug to Guhan, who had sent us a lovely message on WhatsApp, saying that he'd like to be part of the Bazaars. And Avyukt Nair, if you're watching today, Guhan sent out a message saying he simply loved your interviews with Asha Nehmiah and CG Salamander, and he wants to do one interview too at some point in time. We definitely are going to make that happen. So for my friends on Instagram, I was just saying that this is a 2-hour show, and when we bring in the guest, to do an interview with somebody who's, is usually a writer, illustrator, or someone who's done work in the space, that we have themed the Bazaar around. We need to log off Instagram. And for those of you who are on Facebook or can access YouTube, it would be lovely if you continued to watch us there. Our YouTube channel is also called Funky Rainbow, and our Facebook handle is Funky Rainbow as well. So a quick round of hellos to Dhara, Bansari, Gavara Gautam, Archana Narayanan, my chapter 1 reading, Nanaya, Tanya Singh, Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj, awesome on Instagram too, is it? Okay, on Facebook, Sinfu Bala, Dumaketu, we are delighted to see you here this morning. We love our friends at Champaka and Teju. I know you can recommend so many books to us, given what an avid reader you are. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Ride home, it's absolutely a pleasure. Nikki Girl, Vicky Kashyap, Goya Les, Linisha, Joanne Saldana, Divya Menon, Avyukta Namaya Nair, David Williams, Anita Venugopal, Devansh, Siddharth Nair. Thank you so much for calling us yesterday to check that we really didn't shoo away the cake guy and indeed took the cake that was well and truly meant for us. Really appreciate, that wonderful gesture from, all 4 of you. Moon Mitra Das, Akhila Pyada, pleasure to see you this morning. Matthew Jacob, I hope your hand's a lot better. So lovely to see you here all the way from Dubai. Moon Mitra Das, you're asking, could you recommend books about space and galaxy? Definitely for you personally. One of the first recommendations that we made was a book on space, Amritayu. We have 2 more up on our bazaar. We may not have the time to recommend all the books that we put into the bazaar, but there is a lovely encyclopedia of space in our bazaar tab. So if you go to www.funkyrainbow.com, you can click on the tab that says bazaar. There's a drop down menu that comes down, which will and there will be one tab that says non-fiction and all the books that we're recommending. And there's definitely 2 more non-fiction books of space in this bazaar. We don't know if you're going to have time to talk about those, but please do check it out. Hi, Reshu Divan, Archana Atri, such a pleasure that you're back with us this morning. Vidya Nagaraj, Sudeshna Moitra, Shantanu Datta Gupta, Vaishali Shroff, Arti Anand, hello. Lovely to see you from Chennai, joining us at the bazaar. Sumanna Kundagrami, been a long time, but we're so glad you're here. Bindya Parvani, Shruti Shetty, such a pleasure and a big shout out to you. We know you have a little Redan in your house at the moment, and we hope you're going to pick up tons and tons of books for him. Sirisha Pratik, Seena Ravindran, Sumi and Alexander Anup, such a pleasure. Trupti Tapasi, Jojo Philip, Anjali Rao, how lovely to see you here at the bazaar. Janvi Ashar, really great to connect again. Insta 123, the Todd Teller, Neha 773, Kartika, Preeti Baya, such a pleasure to have so many of you join us at the bazaar this morning.
But you can't see the EST problem. I'm not able to communicate with.
Okay, just a second. We are trying to get our guest online, and she's having some trouble connecting, to our coming on the live stream. I'm just quickly going to see if we can call her to tell her that she possibly needs to log in again. Just 1 second. Here, Bharti. Just ask, I've dialed her number. So Sham can, So tell her exactly. Sunila Kulkarni Gupte, lovely to see you. Hello, Team FR, you say, and we are delighted to see you here this morning, Sunila. While we wait for our wonderful guest of the day to join us on the live stream, I will continue recommending 1 or 2 books before we, get her up on the live stream. This one, again, a glorious, lovely book from Katha called Syed Haider Raza. And, the book Syed Haider Raza, S.H. Raza, one of India's foremost artists, written by Raza himself. It's a lovely autobiography for all young painters and, people who love art. As you can see, it's all about how Raza himself, as a young child, and absolutely went on several creative adventures, creative, colorful adventures, and this book talking about his life while introducing you to his glorious kind of art. It invites you to step right into Raza's world and get inspired. And really, it's a treat to be able to have so many it's a treat to have so many of his paintings compiled and collected in one wonderful autobiography written by S.H. Raza himself. I mean, really, Raza and his Bindu. We know that for him, all his adventures started with a little circle, and then the concentric circles that followed. Look at the glorious, artwork that accompanies this book. We would recommend it for 6+ year olds, and this is published by Katha, priced at 195 rupees. Sham, can I go on and introduce? Okay, so that's our guest for the day has absolutely managed to join the live stream, and
Sorry, I can't take your call right now.
I'm going to introduce you to her. This is somebody whose books have just burst into the Indian kidlit scene, a couple of years ago, and two excellent books of nonfiction that, like I said, literally burst into the scene, 4 or 5 years ago, and have kept all of us reading and engrossed across these 5 years, because these books, such wonderfully researched and wonderfully written books of nonfiction, take you on take you on a roller coaster ride through India's past, by way of archaeology, and also, the other one that she's written called The Game Changers, which picks out 25 iconic people who have literally influenced the shape of things to come in India's future. And like I said, often we have guests whom we introduce who have bodies of work that go across maybe 15, 20 years. But Devika Karyappa, we, met her books first when, as part of Good Books, they came into they came in for consideration for the awards in the nonfiction category. And believe me, simply looking at the book, and we at that point in time didn't know much about the writer at all, those books had all of us at Funky Rainbow absolutely engrossed. So it's with such great pleasure that I invite one of our foremost writers of history, and a contemporary writer of history, and somebody who's made history so enjoyable, so presentable for young readers. It is with great pleasure that we invite Devika Karyappa on this show. Hi Devika, and a very, very, very good morning to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You've given me such a frighteningly good introduction. Now, I don't know what to say, except that I'm truly honored that you invited me and delighted to be on your extremely important, your work is just amazing. Your team is amazing. You are amazing. Your work is amazing. So I'm really honored.
Thank you, Devika. It's you, the people like you and your work that make us do what we do and have been doing for so many years. Joanne Saldana from Chennai saying, hello, Devika. So looking forward to this session. And the thing, like I said, of Devika is that she burst upon the scene like a breath of fresh air with this spectacular book called, Excavating History, India Through Archaeology. And it was such an interesting take on telling India's history through archaeological digs. The thing with Devika's writing, the nonfiction, is it's really what I was saying at the beginning of the show. Excellent narrative nonfiction at its best, really sweeping away readers, with an amazing amount of stories and research and fact couched into these stories. So, and rightfully, Devika did this book. Sunila Kulkarni Gupta saying, here for you, Devika, here for you indeed. Just after Excavating History, she did the 25 Game Changers book, and in this short span of time, winning two fantastic awards for the two books that have that form part of her repertoire. Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj saying, hi Devika, I'm really looking forward to listening to you. Devika won the Hindu Young World Good Books Awards. Vaishali Shroff saying, hi Devika, I still remember our meeting in Kanpur and discussing archaeology and history over lunch. Well, digging into lunch and digging into archaeology and history. So she won the Hindu Young World Good Books Awards for Best Book Nonfiction for India Through Archaeology, and then very recently the Bal Sahitya Puraskar. So ladies and gentlemen, and all you children out there, a big big round of applause to one of our most talented writers for young people, Devika Kariyappa. I'm going to, ask Devika a clutch of questions. And actually, what is really interesting about, Devika is that we have a lot of writers who are engineers, and we've met a lot of writers who, are possibly some of them doctors, some of them teachers. We've even met musician writers. But I think, Devika, you've got to be our first archaeologist, a writer, or somebody who's made a career in archaeology. And one would imagine when you make a career in archaeology, you have your nose in bones, stones, and books. But really, what made you, decide to write for children?
So, yeah, Vidya, I still have my nose in bones, stones, and books. But what happened was when I started out as a student of history, and then I started my career in archaeology and stuff. And we were reading. Archaeology, by the way, is quite a dry subject. It really is bones and stones. And we were, discovering these amazing on excavations, like maybe a little toy cart or a little burial of a child in a pot. Or while I was researching prehistoric art, which is my specialization, there were these amazing pictures of family life, like children running around and mothers sort of trying to gather them and feed them. And at that time, it was a very long time ago, it occurred to me that these are really fascinating stories that children would enjoy thoroughly. And apart from that, it was like, the mystery, and there were thrillers, like how the Harappan civilization, the Indus Valley civilization, was discovered almost by accident when they started constructing a railway line, or how Ashoka the Great, who we all know and love now, was totally forgotten for hundreds of years. Till the mid-18th century, nobody knew there was a king called Ashoka, till his inscriptions were deciphered by James Prinsep in the late 18th century. So these were like, they read like mystery stories and thrillers, and I thought this is perfect for children. So at that time, a very long time ago, I had this idea that I should be writing some of this for children. And the other reason was also because, we have amazing historians, we have amazing archaeologists who do the most difficult kind of work. And I think, frankly, they're too busy they write really good books, but these are all in the academic field.
Right.
So that was not really filtering down to children or even to lay people, like adults who are interested in history, who would like to hear that, but their work is very specialized, and it's frankly difficult to read for a lay person. So at that time, I thought this work needs to be done. That's how the idea came to me.
That is lovely, really. We know, and just like you rightly said, all the world loves a good story, right? I mean, and you this is what drew you into into archaeology and history and writing for children. But was it then an easy decision to make, to choose, not to choose a popular form? I mean, not to choose fiction as your means of expression, but to write nonfiction, and particularly nonfiction for children? Was it an easy?
Yeah, it was, I would say it came out of a slightly negative but very funny experience that I had. Like, I was once called in as a substitute history teacher in my daughter's school. Okay. So I walk into this classroom, and then there's 50 children, huge class, and I sort of very grandly say, which one of you likes history? And you won't believe, it was a dumb question to ask. Not a single hand went up. Not a single one. And I thought, what? I mean, what's happening? So I said, no, but why? And they were all like, ma'am, it's so boring. It's only about kings and dates. We have to mug up stuff. And one little child, not so little, they were 9th and 10th graders. And I said, one of them said, ma'am, my father says I have to become an astrophysicist or something, or it could be anything. for astrophysicists, read doctor, engineer. And he says history is not at all important. So you don't have to concentrate on that. And it was very sad. But in those months when I taught them and I tried to make it a little more exciting and stuff, I realized that they were actually very interested. Children are naturally interested in history. You just watch a little kid, a tiny little kid being told a story by the grandmother. And that child doesn't want to hear some grand story. The story will be, Thai, what did you eat for lunch when you were young? How did you go to school? How did you walk? Like, did you wear uniform? Little things, that's history. So they are interested. So I thought, okay, this is my mission in life. I have to write nonfiction and it has to be interesting. And no child should ever say, I'm not interested in history ever again. So that's my mission.
We are so glad you went as a substitute teacher to that school. Those kids absolutely, setting you on the right track. For all our audience who's watching, and many of them familiar with your books, but many of them perhaps not familiar. Both these books, India Through Archaeology, Excavating History, and India Through People, 25 Game Changers, are really about history. In one, you bring alive India's past through archaeology, and in another, you introduce us to amazing people from history who have influenced the course of our future. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about the two books and tell us what does it take really to convert research into interesting reading, and really, like those kids said at school, to sort of present history in a non-boring way?
Okay, so you've introduced the book super well. So I'll start with talking about the research, because really in nonfiction, research is the key. You cannot do enough research. So for books like these or any nonfiction book, I think there is months and months and months of research. There is fact checking. There is you ask scholars, you check your facts again. So in time, you sort of build up. The archaeology book took me almost 2.5 years to do, simply because I wanted to get it right, because you're presenting this information to young children and you want it to be as correct as possible at the time, because things keep changing, theories keep changing. You have to keep on board. So once you've sort of built up this mountain of research, then you emerge from under that big pile and you have to find an approach story, because that child or that reader is not interested in or impressed by how much of research you've done. They just want a good story. So you have to find a really good approach to your subject, which, again, with the language, it has to be a very fine balance between, information, technical terms, and fun facts.
Right.
So these are really challenges of writing nonfiction, especially very research-heavy nonfiction. And I can't emphasize enough how much the research means. It's got to be good. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be verified. And then only will you present to the child. And if your tone takes on even a little bit of a teacherly tone or a textbook moment, you're going to lose that child on the first page. So you have to really watch that, So that's the challenge of writing these kind of nonfiction works.
And what kind? You said it took you nearly 2.5 years. So was that, part of your research, part of your writing, combination of both? How much time did it take you to do the next one, the Game Changers one, after that?
Okay. Yeah. So the archaeology book, since I was in archaeology and I had researched and worked as an archaeologist for many years, the research part was sort of taken care of. I knew what I had to do. The challenge in the archaeology book was the approach. How do I present? As I said, archaeology can be very dry. So how do I make it exciting for a child? So then I had to choose these entry points. Like every chapter is an entry point to an era. We put it on a timeline. And then each chapter has an introduction with one material remain. Like one chapter is on coins, one is on pillars, one is on copper plates, one is just a statue of Kanishka. So it depends on that era. I chose one object because it is about material remains to represent that era, and then I wrote a story about it. And of course, Tulika, my publishers, had this fabulous production. You've seen the book, you know how beautiful the photographs and the Ashok Rajagopalan's illustrations and little cartoons and maps and, So
I'm just going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
There is a question for you, which is so pertinent to what you're saying. This is from your fan number 1. I was telling you about him, who grew up reading your book over breakfast because his father is a big history buff. This is Avyuk Nair, and apparently read bits and pieces of your book to him as he was growing up. Now, the question that he's asked you, and so relevant to the part of research, saying, do you really travel to the places that you write about?
Avyuk, you have a career in television journalism, so you can keep archaeology. I saw your interview; it was fantastic. But archaeology. No, I wouldn't necessarily travel to every place. Like I've been in India, I've been to many of the places, a lot of them. But our country is oozing with archaeology.
Right.
You just go into your backyard and you will find something. So it's not necessary that I've seen, and some of them are very well known. Say the Harappan sites.
Right.
Unfortunately, I've not seen very many of the major Harappan sites, but I've seen very obscure sites in central India where all the prehistoric art is. Or in Maharashtra, I've seen a lot of the Iron Age sites where I've actually been with my professors excavating. So I'm familiar with some parts of it. I'm familiar with the excavation processes or what they call exploration in archaeology. We used to go and hunt for, for the stone tools, very, very ancient stuff, prehistoric stuff.
Right.
But I have not, I'm very ashamed to say, I have not been to some of the better known places. Like I haven't been to Hampi. Can you believe it?
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I have not been to Hampi. So, I hope that answers your question. I'm familiar with a lot of the places. I've visited a number of the places, but I've certainly not been to every place that I've written about.
Somebody else asking you a question, which before we get on to our next one, it says history and archaeology are subjects very close to our hearts in our family. This is Preeti Ramchandran. However, it is so varied across different parts of our country and across so many centuries. How do we introduce this to a curious 6-year-old? Where do we even start?
If you're talking of archaeology, history, there's a number of ways. But archaeology, perhaps, as I was talking, the chapters in my book are really based on material remains. So if it's a 6-year-old, if he or she, I'm not sure, is a strong reader, you could probably start reading out some of the chapters of
Absolutely.
The book. Okay. If not, if they're not a strong reader, you could introduce the concept of history from material remains.
Yes.
Okay, you could take a coin and say, what kind of information can we get from this coin? Okay, what is on it? Is it a god? Is it a king? How old do you think this coin is? Who do you think made it? Just a sort of a curiosity about the past. Or perhaps if you don't have anything like that, you could just start with your own family. You might have some antiques at home. What is this typewriter? Does a child know what the typewriter did? Or an old camera or something? It's just a sense. Once you develop that sense, then there are marvelous ways in which you can take them to old, as I said, our country is literally oozing with history. So you just step into your backyard and you'll find something. When I say backyard, I mean, for instance, we are in Bangalore. Okay, the whole of Karnataka is full of hero stones. You just walk out into some garden and you'll find, or you'll go to a temple and you'll see them outside. That's a source of history. Very interesting source for a young child, most interesting because they're like superheroes, sort of inscribed on those stones. So little things like that. Start with material remains and then go on to reading, stuff from books to them, and then they'll take up the interest themselves.
So Avyukt Nair, just responding to something that you said, no, I want to be a helicopter pilot who's a paleontologist and an archaeologist in between rescuing all animals as a vet. My gosh, it only takes a 9-year-old to...
Go for it, Avyukt, go for it.
But there were two comments that came up in the course of your response. There was David Williams from Australia who's saying the approach story matters for drawing children into history. This is such a wonderful, thought-provoking idea. This is a great interviewee. Thank you. So that's... And Shantanu Datta Gupta, who heads Scholastic India, saying Lothal is pretty sparse and isn't excavated at all. Good to do a book on that. Plenty of stories that can emerge from there. So
no, Lothal is actually excavated.
Yes.
You know what happens with excavation is like if you go to Mohenjo-daro or Harappa today, you won't see anything, because what archaeologists do typically, especially in those days, that was a method. You excavated, you recorded, and then you covered it up, because they hoped that in the decades to come, archaeologists would be able to uncover with better methods. So Lothal has been excavated, has been recorded, and has been covered up largely. But otherwise, it would just disappear, right? Because you've exposed 2,000, 4,000-year-old remains. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting site. I would love to write on Lothal.
Just such a short hop, skip, and jump, from Ahmedabad. I didn't even know that you could just get there in an hour, and suddenly you feel, my gosh, you're standing, in decade. I mean, when you just stand in a historical site, right? That whole feeling of goosebumps that you get.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, absolutely. That this is where the Indus Valley civilization possibly began, really, right? So, our next question for you was, of course, in the course of all this research, you certainly have unearthed so many fascinating facts. Is there an aha discovery from India's past that you'd like to share with, all our viewers?
How much time do we have?
We have time. No. We have time. We have, 2 or 3 more questions, so it's okay. We're all enjoying the conversation. Don't worry.
No, just kidding. It's just that I could just go on and on. I get so passionate about archaeology. I just sort of carry on talking. But there's one thing that, one of my favorite sources of historical information is a hero stone. I just mentioned it. So a hero stone is basically a memorial stone. Okay, it's like about a couple of feet high, and you've all probably seen one without realizing it. It's a memorial to a hero. So the hero or heroine, there are many with women on them, who have prevented some great calamity from befalling their village or town or something. And they could be around 800 years old or till quite recently. And it has inscribed in what I like to think of as a comic book. I call them superhero stones in my book. There are 3 strips. You read from bottom upwards. So in the first, there's a hero fighting off his enemies or cattle raiders or something. Then the second one, he dies. And in the upper one, he goes to heaven and he's received by the gods with great honor, because he has, he's given up his life for his village or his honor of somebody, or, something like that. So around 950 CE, I don't know if we people are not commonly use CE, we used AD, but the youngsters will know commonly. Yes. Around 950 CE, in North Karnataka district, there was an inscription found, and it talked the master of 2 dogs, okay, and the dogs' names were Loga and Talaga. And he talks very fondly of these 2 dogs. And he says they were the heroes, they accompanied me in war, and one of them killed 75 wild boar. Wild boar was a real menace in those days. And one of them killed 25 wild boar. And, and I really miss them, they both died. Okay. Now, I thought that in itself was amazing. Right. So what happens a few years later, in the same area, somewhere near that inscription, they found a beautiful 2-paneled hero stone with the images of Loga and Talaga on them.
Wow.
It was just, to me, I mean, it was amazing. I sort of realized the mystery and the beauty of archaeology, because it's not just the lifestyles of the kings and the queens and everything. I know the name of two dogs that lived centuries ago. And I
Really?
know about their master and how much he loved them. And these Loga and Talaga were heroes themselves, and they were commemorated. They were somebody's pet dogs. So that to me was a super, sort of a moment. That's in the book, by the way, in my Hero
Yes.
Stones chapter.
Wow. Really? Wow.
And the other little thing which always makes me giggle a bit, because I
Okay.
haven't mentioned my other book, The Game Changers, is that
Yes.
I think is it the first chapter?
Mm-hmm.
So Rabindranath Tagore
Mm-hmm.
is probably the only school dropout to win a Nobel Prize in literature. And I thought that makes me giggle every single time, because he's actually a school dropout and he's won the Nobel Prize in literature. Like, there is hope for everybody.
Yes.
What an amazing character. So these two little things that sort of keep me going in research. And
Fabulous, just fabulous. And I mean, rightfully, these books have won you two fantastic awards, really. I mean, the Hindu Young World Good Books Awards for Best Book Nonfiction and the Bal Sahitya Puraskar, that one was in 2018. And I think the Bal Sahitya Puraskar was 2019, isn't it, really? So, I mean, really it's such a, you've done two books and you've won two major awards. You must be on top of the world. But do these awards really encourage writers to keep going on?
well, I would be lying if I said that big shiny trophy on my desk does not make me very happy every morning. You know it. But having said that, every author will agree that nobody writes with an award in mind.
Yeah.
Nobody. I mean, everyone's just doing their thing. But writing is really lonely, especially non-fiction writing. And you're like
Yes.
working away, and you put all your life, sort of, sweat and tears and everything into that book. And you're hoping and praying that some little child will be inspired or will be engaged with your book. And then when suddenly somebody comes and says, look, you know what, we really liked your book, we like it enough to give you an award, it's a hugely exciting and encouraging moment. It is really encouraging. And what is more special is that the juries of those awards are like very eminent people. Like, they know they're journalists, or they're artists, or they're authors themselves, or they might be specialists in a field or something. So it means a lot
Right.
that someone has recognized all that work and hard work and stuff like that. It is very encouraging, I have to say.
Did you have a very nice history teacher in your school? Again, a question for you coming from Avyukt.
Yes, I had very good history teachers, but more than my history teacher was my father, who, by the way, was not a helicopter pilot, but he was an army. He was a soldier in the army, but he loved history so much. So some of his love, that sheer passion that he had, I was talking about introducing you to history through material. He was that kind of a person. So that was my inspiration.
How
Yeah.
lovely. How lovely. So, of course, and this announcement we are so happy to make now, that you have a sparkling new book that's come out for young readers, and that pun is absolutely intended. Tell us about it. Tell our audience about it. Before you start talking about it, I want to tell them that the book hasn't hit Bangalore yet. As soon as it does, we're going to have it up on our site, and every single one of you is going to want to read it. So we'll hear it right out of the author's mouth, the new book that's just come out.
Yeah, I love the pun. Vidya, I love the pun. It's actually about a sparkling object. Okay, it's about a diamond. So, there is a few years ago. May I show books on the Vidya?
Yes, absolutely.
I can show them.
Absolutely. We can show it up as well.
A few years ago, this book by a very eminent historian called William Dalrymple and a co-author called Anita Anand. They've written this book called The Kohinoor, the story of the world's most infamous diamond.
Yes.
Now, I think literally every Indian knows what the Kohinoor is and why we should have it back and stuff like that. And this story is superbly researched and very well written. It's for adults, okay? And it's full of murder and mayhem and kidnappings and treason and torture. So the publishers, Juggernaut, thought that it would be just ideal for like 10-plus-year-olds. So they asked me to adapt the book for 10-plus-year-olds. So this is the book.
Yay!
It's called The Adventures of the Kohinoor, the world's unluckiest diamond. And it is exactly that. It's just a sort of a rollicking story of the Kohinoor. And some of it, I mean, I have to tell you, when I was writing it, some of the stories, the background of the Kohinoor, I just couldn't believe. So I've started with like, how diamonds are actually formed and geologically speaking, and how ancient Indians regarded diamonds, and how India was the only source of diamonds in the world till the 18th century. The diamonds only came from India till they were discovered in Brazil. So I've I've written the story based on the original book, but it's full of little boxes with facts and fun and everything in it. So I hope that you will enjoy it.
It sounds just the perfect ingredients for a good rollicking read. Murder, mayhem, mystery, shiny stuff. People fighting over this precious object.
And
so we're really
a most terrible curse on the diamond as well.
Oh, yes.
So because it's supposed to be very unlucky. So so trace that. Yeah.
And I think a lot of children really do know that as a fact, right? That it's an unlucky, that whoever has had it has been cursed in some way or not. So we're eagerly waiting to get this one on our bookshelves for all our viewers. The publisher says it should be in next week. We will make an announcement, putting it out, as soon as it's here, and you can just grab your copies of this sparkling new read from Devika Cariappa. Now, one question that and a lot of parents have often written this into us. I mean, we always, why is it important for children to be reading nonfiction as well? And, typically what happens is the minute you say nonfiction, people tend to think that all the nonfiction that children need come out of their textbooks. And I think really nothing could be further away from the truth, isn't it, Devika?
No, absolutely not. Yeah. See, the thing about nonfiction is, okay, why should they be reading it? It's very simple. It encourages curiosity. They get a lot of pleasure reading facts. They discover new worlds that they needn't necessarily be covering in their school curriculum. And there are two ways. Like, some of them love to engage deeper in something that they love in school. Mm-hmm. Say a kid who's really good at mathematics would love to read more about it. But they also like to engage in subjects that are not necessarily covered and very deeply. Like I know 11-year-olds who are like practically authorities on butterflies of India or something like that, which are not taught in school.
Yeah.
Now, how great is that? Like, that is a fantastic opportunity for a child to spread his or her wings into something different in nonfiction. So that's one thing. The other thing that I have discovered, and this is through personal experience, is that readers, you all know that your children are not necessarily the same kind of readers. So there are children who don't necessarily engage with fiction.
Absolutely.
They don't necessarily want to, or some of them can't sustain an interest in a story.
Yes.
So for them, I think nonfiction is a beautiful opportunity, like a door that opens into reading. Like, instead of being discouraged and saying, oh, my child just doesn't read, just put a nonfiction book in front of them and say,
correct,
nonfiction is read very differently. You can flip back and forth. You don't have to read the whole thing from beginning to end. You can open up chapter, you read that chapter, you engage with another chapter more fully when you feel like it, you have a glossary. So unknowingly, you're getting all the benefits of reading, all the vocabulary and the analytical skills and everything. But you're just flipping back and forth. It appears that the child is just flipping back and forth. But actually, there is an engagement, and that child will then, I think, become a reader. It doesn't matter what whether it's fiction or non-fiction, but non-fiction has this little, opportunity for a child who's not necessarily into fiction. So that's why I think it's terribly important.
Yes.
But having said that, I think a parent, the role of a parent in picking out non-fiction, okay, you need to follow your child's lead. What the child is in. It's not that, oh my God, my child is so good at history, I've got to give him only non-fiction books on history. It's not that. If your child is interested in history and then says, I want to study spiders, you have to follow her to the shop and pick out that book with her and say, okay, this looks like a very good book on spiders. Please go ahead,
Right.
And the other thing, just encourage them in that sense, let them take the lead. But there is a word of caution. There is, just as there's good fiction and, there's also good and sort of okay non-fiction. Just flip through the book or check the reviews or check what the author, the background, maybe the author's background or something. Just have a quick look at the book to see that you're getting something that is not way off. It should be somewhat accurate, have some kind of a,
Correct.
if you're presenting it as non-fiction, it should be good non-fiction.
Correct.
That's, that's as much as it. Don't try to mold the child, because then that child will get that teacherly feeling, and they have a very good nose to sniff out when they're being told that this is really good for you, this is educational. They'll go in the opposite direction.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. How well said, really. I mean, to encourage them to follow, to sort of let them show you, what they really would like to read. It's been such a, pleasure talking to you, Devika, and so many insights, so many wonderful, things that you've had to say about nonfiction. I really hope, our audience and, our viewers, encourage their children to read a lot of nonfiction themselves. I mean, like you rightly said, fiction often, the doorway to imagination, but I really believe that nonfiction is, sometimes a very good window to the real world as well. And lots of children preferring this genre these days. And with wonderful writers like you, there are excellent books of nonfiction to read as well. So thank you so much for being with us at our book bazaar, Nonfiction Book Bazaar.
Thank you, Vidya. It's been an absolute delight. I've really enjoyed myself, and thank you for having me and your whole team. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. A lot of people saying thank you to you as well.
Thanks, everyone. It's so great to meet you all.
Even if it's online, all of Devika's
Online,
books, both the history books available at Funky Rainbow, www.funkyrainbow.com. Click on the tab that says Book Bazaar. There's a drop-down menu that says nonfiction, and all the books are there. David Williams, you had me looking up the Kohinoor at the age of 53 while this interview ran. You've never too old to learn more from a children's book, says David Williams from Australia.
Keep going. Keep going.
Sunila saying, Devika, such words of wisdom, follow your heart and let them lead you forward. How wonderful. Thank you so much. Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj saying, we really enjoyed your interview, Devika, really enjoyed your session. I'm picking up your books for my grandchildren immediately. Look at that.
Oh, super. I hope they enjoy it.
Kavita Kurian, lots of thank yous coming your way. Joanne Saldana saying, thank you, Devika. So many insights. Wonderful library educator. So, we really hope the books go far and wide from Funky Rainbow, and thank you really for joining us at the Book Bazaar. It's been such a pleasure, Devika.
Thank you, Vidya. Thank you again.
Yes. So we're back, and that wonderful conversation with Devika Karyappa telling us why it's so important to include nonfiction in your child's reading lists. And Devika's books, which are really handsomely produced by Tulika, the two of them, absolutely, please do make use of our 2020 discount, because they are expensive books, but available at a special discount of 20% if you pick up books over 2000 rupees. So this is our 2020 offer, valid from November 20th to December 20th. Preeti Ramchandran saying a copy for me. Yes, definitely for Gohan. As I said, there is a lovely offer going on. Books over 2000 rupees entail you to a 20% discount. So these books by Devika Karyappa, 25 Game Changers, and India Through Archaeology must haves for this show. Avyukt, you say we hope to meet Devika someday. We really hope to facilitate these sessions live at some point in time. And yes, like Sham reminds me, Devika used to be based out of Delhi, but has now moved to Bangalore. So we really hope one day at your school, Avyukt, for sure. We'll get on with a clutch of more non-fiction recommendations for you after that lovely interview with Devika. This one called The Magical World of the Wild. This one has been put together by Art First, and they really specialize in these beautiful books of art. There are wonderful biographies of Ambadas, Cobra and Raza that Art First has done. Those books are at our Non-Fiction Bazaar, but we are focusing on this one because we've never recommended this one before. It's a beautiful theme-based book that introduces children to miniature, folk, modern, and contemporary art. How does that do it? It explores, the book has these beautiful illustrations by different Indian artists, both established artists and artists from different tribal communities in India, and giving you accompanying activities to do with each of these beautiful arts that, paintings that they have reproduced here. Now you can see, just like Art First Productions, they have, they expect you to do this little activity over here, and there are answers up for you here. But what that does is to make each child observe these works of art. They could be spot the differences, they could be join the dots, they could be counting, but don't think this is an ordinary activity book. It's not. Each of the artworks that it is using is by a well-known artist from India. And it's a beautiful activity book in the sense that you can scratch things off, I would love to just do this right here, but this book has to make its way into one of your houses. When you scratch this off, it's revealing to you different objects, some of which you can and are asked to find in this painting. Such a lovely way to get our children introduced to contemporary Indian art, both, and this includes tribal art as well. It's a great way, especially if you've got children who love art, who love color, and, great way to introduce, visual or encourage visual literacy in young readers. We would, really, it's very difficult to pitch an age. For instance, look at this one. Most adults know that this is M.F. Hussein's painting. And what you're expected to do is join the dots. Here you observe the painting and then you join the dots over here to recreate a horse exactly like Hussein's iconic paintings. This is just such a treasure of a book for those of you who want to encourage visual literacy amongst your children. And it adopts a wonderful interdisciplinary approach. So it's a fun book. It's adapted very, very imaginatively, and it's just right, actually, for adults as well, who, some of us who don't know about these artists very well. It's such a great way to find out what makes their art unique. As I said, produced, published by Art First. This one is priced at 600 rupees and is well and truly a priceless book. Our next set of books, which are quite popular, and I think maybe, a clutch of, you would probably know of these ones. It's a set of 3 excellent books of nonfiction called What If the Earth Stopped Spinning and 24 Other Mysteries of Science, written by Rupa Pai, Do Tigers Drink Blood and 13 Other Mysteries of Nature, written by Arifa Tehseen and Raza Tehseen, and How Did the Harappans Say Hello and 16 Other Mysteries of History, written by Anu Kumar. All foremost writers in their fields. And what is lovely about these books of nonfiction is that they approach it in a question and answer format. For instance, in How Did the Harappans Say Hello, it begins with the question that is eponymous of the title of the book: how did the Harappans really say hello? Then there is a question that talks about whatever happened to Mohenjo-daro. Where is it? Who on earth were the Indo-Aryans? This nice chatty style that they've adopted, and breaking it up into questions with little illustrations, peppering the text. Absolutely a great way to to sort of to whet a child's curiosity and to then unravel some mysteries, in this case of history, in this case of nature, and in this case of science. Really, do tigers drink blood? We all know Arifa Tehseen and Raza Tehseen are well known for their work in wildlife and conservation, answering questions like, why do crocodiles have stones in their stomachs? Why is a butcher bird named so? Don't we want to know the answers to all of these questions? Very, very appealing in bits and bytes of information, presented in a very attractive manner. And in What If the Earth Stopped Spinning, there is, what if the sun suddenly disappeared? What if the moon fell out of its orbit and crashed into the earth? All questions that young minds are thinking of, definitely. And Mutuma is just telling me that this excellent collection of nonfiction books, please consider picking them up as a set. These are the 3 books in the set. A child, we would recommend this for 9+-year-olds, 8 if your children are reading at a higher level, and adults of all ages. Many, many curious questions answered through these 3 books of nonfiction. Our next recommendation for the day is a writer who's a top favorite at Funky Rainbow, and this is Ranjit Lal and his delightful book, Birds from My Window and the Antics They Get Up To. This is literally, the birds that Ranjit Lal, a wonderful nature writer, a wonderful writer of so many other books as well, not just on nature, and a great bird watcher and nature lover, has written literally by opening the window in his room and looking out at all the birds that fly in and out of the trees around the window. And this is just the kind of book that can whet a child's if your child has been asked to go on a bird watching trip, or a lovely activity far and away from games and TV, and Divya Menon, or rather Avyuk, saying he's the best animal book writer. Really, we love Ranjit Lal's writing, and we hope to have him as a guest at our bazaar someday soon for sure. So, here the book, the birds that he's talking about, just a simple house full of sparrows. There are white-throated munias, there are hang-gliding crows, there are flying kites, there are minor birds with major attitude. Ranjit is such a fun writer. And this collection, of essays, it's basically recollections of birds that he's seen from his window, is such a wonderful reference book on the birds of India. And often we do have books on birds, but many of these are so exotic that if you go somewhere, you're like looking up and down, you can't spot it, you can't see where this is. But these are simple, common birds that you can simply just see around your house. what does Ranjit do? He writes so beautifully about them. He, gives each of the birds great characteristics, lovely attitude, like he said. And whether it's the Brahmini Myna or the magpie robin, whom he refers to as the mad Mozart of birds, basically, because just singing away madly and in tune, though, basically, bringing alive so many idiosyncrasies and characteristics of birds. This, Scholastic India has published this book, and it's just so splendid to have, both for you as adults and for children, to just look out of your window and see if you can spot and identify these birds. This one's priced at 195 rupees, and we really feel, everybody, even people who are not great bird watchers, because of Ranjit's humorous and delightful style, will be chuckling away, reading this wonderful book. Priced. She says children are likely to come up with their own stories if they read Ranjit's delightful writing. Priced at 195 rupees and published by Scholastic India. In the same vein, another book of non-fiction by a writer who we admire so much at Funky Rainbow, Subhadra Sen Gupta, with Let's Go Time Traveling, Life in India Through the Ages. Subhadra is a queen of history herself. Again, someone who's been writing for decades and has been writing history for children in such an enjoyable manner. This book, when it came out, and she's collaborated with a long-time collaborator of hers, the artist and illustrator Taposh Guha, and they have this rollicking ride through India's history, starting from the Harappan civilization, coming, pretty much, up to, modern times. And, Subhadra being Subhadra, her eye for such quirky details. Was King Ashoka fond of chewing pan? How about that? He came right from pan country. So was he really, fond of chewing pan? Mulgatawny was a soup, but what was pish pash? Did they design jewelry in Harappa? Who played Pachisi, Chaupad, and Iyam Turki? Look at those questions. I mean, lovely questions which take you into different historical periods. And, Subhadra's trademark writing, humorous writing, accompanied by Taposh's lovely illustrations. We're not surprised that this book was the winner of the Comic Con Award in 2012 for Best Illustrated Children's Book and Best Children's Writer. It's David saying, Myna birds with major attitude, ha ha. The Indian Myna is absolutely plague in Eastern Australia here. They're too smart for the local wildlife. One in Sydney was renowned for catching a bus every morning to its feeding grounds, then hopping on, my gosh, the mad Mozart indeed. But you know what? Trust us Indians to absolutely not be confounded by these oh so clever birds and their oh so noisy singing 24 or almost all through the day. But I love that the bird getting on a bus and visiting.
For the purpose that they take a bus back also.
Oh, okay. I couldn't see the rest of what Cham was highlighting, David. But you say that it also took a bus back. What a smart bird, indeed! And thank God we have an abundance of it here in our backyards. Back to time traveling, we're not surprised that this lovely book written and illustrated, on Indian history won awards for both the illustrator and the writer at the Comic Con. This one published by Penguin India and priced at 199 rupees. Our next clutch of books is a set of quick, a set of books on girls, on on women and the trailblazing things that they have done. I'm putting it out as a set of 3 books, because there have been a lot of books on inspiring women that have come out in the recent past. Now these are a couple that we've really enjoyed: Girl Power, Indian Women Who Broke the Rules, by Neha J. Hiranandani, and published by Scholastic India, that focuses on 50 awesome women, 50 awe-inspiring stories, and one defining moment that changed their lives to do what they wanted to do. And there's a spectrum of women. They could be scientists, artists, entrepreneurs, scholars, athletes, queens. Such an extraordinary collection. And as you can see, very, very nicely illustrated, and taking you into the lives of many women that we probably don't know of that well. As we don't, there are the famous names. There are very, very well known women, Indian women who literally broke the rules, but you're likely to discover several others in the course of this book. There's Captain Dr. Lakshmi Sehgal, there's Abbakka, there's the artist Amrita Shergill, there's the freedom fighter Aruna Asaf Ali, Mary Kom. Like I said, famous ones, not so famous ones, but a great way to discover women who've really changed our lives. Similarly, another collection, and in a different sort of format, not that illustrative, called Unstoppable, the stories of 75 trailblazing Indian women, written by Gayatri Ponvanan. It's lovely that we have so many role models for our young people, and books about them in varying formats. Like you could see Girl Power had a picture, and there was text alongside. This one, Gayatri Ponvanan's book, has more text. We would recommend it for the 10-plus-year-olds, and really she too introducing you to so many wonder women of India. Ditto, another one which has taken a very good tack, which says, if she can, then you can too. The A to Z book of iconic Indian women, She Can, You Can, written by Garima Kushwaha and illustrated by Anastasia Damani. Again, bringing alive so many women, several known, several unknown. And I think these are books that children, adults, educators, parents, every single one of us can, be inspired by their stories. Aryansh Agrawal, please recommend some books on snakes. I have read Miles Kelly and What Snakes in the City on National Geographic. Aryansh, if you could write to us on WhatsApp at 99004 95665. Please just connect with us and we'll send you some lovely books on snakes that exist in our collection. I wonder if we specifically have one on snakes at the moment. Do we have any? That's Cobra in My Kitchen. There's a lovely book which we don't have in stock at the moment, written by the naturalist writer Zai Whitaker, called Cobra in My Kitchen. It's a collection of stories, of Zai's own encounters in the wild. And they are such delightful stories of nature, and not stories, actually, essays, in fact, and articles on the creatures that big and small that share the planet with us. But please do connect, and we'll try and pick out a couple of books, on snakes and mongooses for you and recommend them to you. Our next clutch of recommendations are two books that have absolutely kept me engrossed and entertained across decades. I literally mean that. I mean, I stumbled upon these books by Siddharth Sharma called 103 Voyages, 103 Journeys, Voyages, Trips and Stuff, and 103 Historical Mysteries, Puzzles, Conundrums and Stuff, both written by Siddharth Sharma, both published by Scholastic. I think I may have discovered them 20 years ago. Even today, I love looking into one of, turning into one of the pages, and there's like two little pages of information on something that's fantastic and you probably simply didn't even know about. Siddharth Sharma is a great raconteur. I mean, we all know him as the writer of some wonderful books of fiction, called The Grasshopper's Run and there's Year of the Weeds. These are two books of non-fiction that he did very, very early on in his career. And the 103 series, which Scholastic has published, really introduces young readers, and we'd say 10 plus year olds. But I'm telling you, many, many, many years older that I am, I just love dipping into this book at least once a week, into one of these books, because, like Devika Karyappa said, it typically, there's, what he's writing about is just 2 pages of information, and there are no illustrations in this book, but just those 2 pages giving you so much info and so much aha material that helps you connect the dots of, about the world around you. So in 103 journeys, voyages, trips and stuff, I mean, he's talking about seafarers, he's talking about travelers, he's talking about people who, who have traveled in the air, in space, underwater, mountaineers, women with grit, animals and plants, scientists, writers and painters. This is a treasure trove. The 103 series, and if the publisher Shantanu is watching, please, please, please never let these books go out of print, because the 103 series is such a delightful collection of non-fiction books. And we are particularly recommending these 2 by Siddharth Sharma. I just showed you 103 journeys, voyages, trips and stuff. And this is 103 historical mysteries, puzzles, conundrums and stuff. So there's civilizations, humanoids, humans, creatures, all, when I say creatures, then going back to the Loch Ness Monster, there are rat kings. There is just such a plethora of information and facts in this book, and written so wonderfully well that I think children and adults, children 10 plus and adults, thoroughly going to enjoy these books. Each one priced at 295 rupees and available at special discounted prices. Joanne Saldana, are there any books on Indian men and boys? Yes, indeed. There is a collection. There are 2 books in that series. There's one called Like a Girl, which is a hardbound anthology published by Westland, which is, several iconic Indian women. And the other one, I think it's called Like a Boy. I'm not sure it's exactly called Like a Boy. It's called Like a Boy, which, sort of highlights the achievements of different Indian men from, various, Muttama is right. She reminds me that the boys' book is called Boys Will Be Boys, and sort of biographies of various men from different fields, historians, architects, adventurers, travelers, scientists, engineers, very handsomely produced that set. They are hardbound books, the 2 of them, Like a Girl and Boys Will Be Boys, written by Aparna Jain, I think, right? The writer Aparna Jain. Joanne Saldana, that's a lovely one if you'd like that for your library. And since you asked, and I was going to kind of recommend these books before I quickly get on to our new arrivals, I wanted to say that there are these 3 lovely biographies of, very inspiring men from India. There's Virgis Kurian, The Milkman of India, done by Rohini Chaudhary and illustrated by Dhruva Rao. Again, a set of books that are brought out by Scholastic. We all know, actually, a lot of us have heard of Virgis Kurian in our lifetimes because of the White Revolution, because of how much he did, Irma, Anand, setting up that whole collective, for India to become, self-reliant in milk. And these books very, very attractively combining comic and text. So you can see that there are pages of comic, and then as you're reading along, it suddenly moves into some pages of text. Text come comic, and it's not that you have to read the comic separately. You read text, then you come on to this page of comic, and then you continue reading text. Very attractive format, this great live series. And we have 3 men Since you were asking for, the lives of inspiring men, there's Virgis Kurian, there is Sachin Tendulkar, of course, whom, the beloved cricketer, again by Rohini Chaudhary and illustrated by Soumya Menon, and another one that we really love, called, On Gandhi by Aditi Dey and illustrated by Pooja Potankulam. All of these in the same format, very well written by these writers, and with partly in comic, partly in text format, making it very, very nice biographies to read. Muttama just brought up for me this one, which is also part of the same series, on Ruskin Bond. So the life and times of Ruskin Bond, and they have produced the Ruskin Bond book, in lovely hardback. You can see there are some pages written by Ruskin Bond himself in his own handwriting, that accompany the book, while his story is being told both visually as well as in comic form. This one is by Shamim Padamsi and the art by Raika Sen. Joanne Saldana says, awesome, thank you. There is one in the series, but I think that's not in print because we've been asking for it for quite some time on APJ Abdul Kalam, but not available at the moment. I'm just going to quickly do two, three more books before we get into the new arrivals. It would be a shame, not to take up a topic like gender, and we've sort of moved, let's say, to books for children 12 plus at this point in time. Very quickly going to breeze through this anthology called Words, which is the best of Indian non-fiction for children. The best of Indian. So there is indeed an anthology like this with writings by Abdul Kalam, by Bhagat Singh, by Dilip Salvi, Archana Atri. I do remember you, put up a, quote saying there are these lovely nature books, by Dilip Salvi, who's no more, I'm afraid, but who's a wonderful writer of science for young people. So these are, many of these things have been translated by Jim Corbett, by Leela Seth, by Gandhi, by Jayant Narlikar, well-known astronomer, an excellent collection of, a great Indian non-fiction, edited by a writer who's edited such fine collections of books for young readers, like Spinning Yarns and 100 Great Poems. This one by Deepa Agarwal, done a great job of compiling the best Indian non-fiction for young readers. And it really does, come even to writers up to modern times. There's Vikram Seth, there's Zai Whitaker, and many, many other contemporary writers. This one is published by Hachette. I did want to go into the, topic of gender, which is what, are probably the final recommendations before we just quickly breeze through our new arrivals. We just have a single copy of this book, but in recent times, this has been a book of nonfiction that has so deeply, deeply moved us at Funky Rainbow. Harsh Mandar writing the stories of hope and courage of invisible people that we don't see. It's narratives from our small towns, from our villages, of people who fought against unimaginable odds to live a life of dignity and courage. Some have emerged greater after the suffering. Some have gone on to help other people like them. And Harsh Mandar, what a great chronicler of, of so many unsung heroes of India. Preeti, you're saying Vidya and Team FR, you're our own personal encyclopedia on children's books, opening doors, windows to topics of interest, subjects, new and many, many more. Hats off, team. Thank you so much for that, Preeti Ramchandran. Glad that you're saying we are good books of non-fiction, basically, right? But Harsh Mandar's books really the unsung heroes of India, telling you stories of people that we just don't know of. They're not the Virgis Kurians. These are not the Abdul Kalams. They're not the Sachin Tendulkars, but there's Mogalamma, there is Rajamane, or people who have absolutely, battled unimaginable odds, and real people. These are all real people, because Harsh Mandar, we all know him, very, very, well-known activist, and, who has chronicled the lives of these real people in this book as stories of hope and courage. It's a book that has moved us very, very deeply at Funky Rainbow. And I think this collection of stories is a must read for children above the age of 12 and all adults out there. I'm afraid we don't have too many copies of it, just a single copy here at the moment. But, we'll hopefully order some more and have them out for you quickly. Very quickly, because gender is an issue that a lot of parents grapple with, there are 3 books that I absolutely wanted to recommend, which is Big Hero, Size Zero, written by Anusha Hariharan and Soumya Rajendran. All these books recommended for 13-plus-year-olds, because this is a book, Big Hero, Size Zero, the book that absolutely takes on issues of sexuality and gender. Are men and women equal? Who decides, who is stronger than the other? Does what you wear invite trouble? Should it invite trouble? Why is it, why should it not be a problem if you're a little bit different from the rest of, very, very different in your sexual orientations from, the norm, basically. These and such very, very important questions that, I'm sure young people are grappling with every day. Who will you be on Facebook, for instance? It's a girl, it's a boy. I mean, is there a difference when, when children are born? Does one need to distinguish, them in particular ways? Gender and appearance, gender and society, sex and gender roles, gender and attraction. It's wonderful that 2 women, and along with an illustrator, Anusha and Soumya, and the illustrator in the book, and as you can see, very, very nicely presented. They don't balk to talk about issues that we normally shy away from talking, and they do it, without emotion, without sentiment, and without making it seem like it's something that we've got to be squeamish about. It really is not. So a lovely, book on gender, recommended for 13-plus-year-olds.
Even parents can keep it and sort of, when they talk to the children.
Parents, teachers, very, very useful for you to look into these books when you're talking to your children. If there's something that you want to address in the course of your conversations with the children, this Gender Talk book, published by Tulika, giving you very, very many ideas. And like I said, tackling issues of gender, sexuality, growing up, the body, the changes that it goes through, attraction, just issues that all of us have to, address with our children in a very positive and in a very, open manner. In a similar vein, a book that you had come out many, many years ago called The Blue Book, What You Want to Know About Yourself. This has been put together by an organization called Tarshi. And they did have, I know, at that stage, a red book and a yellow book, which were all for, I think the red book was for younger, people, the yellow book for like probably middle grade readers, but the blue books is for adolescents. And, it takes on issues like, what's happening to my body? Am I attractive? Am I normal? What is all this sex stuff all about, really? How is it, how is it possible to be safe in this world, basically? Lovely, questions that they are absolutely, answering many issues that teenagers deal with and parents of teenagers deal with in such a open, lucid, frank, and straightforward manner. This one is published by Zuban and priced at 295 rupees. And this is one book in the series that I have just absolutely enjoyed reading. It's called Body Brilliant, a teenage guide to positive body image. This is, of course, a Western book, but I've so thoroughly enjoyed Nicola Morgan's, approach to, your body, being comfortable in your body, dealing with body shaming. And I know that, teenagers and, not even younger children deal with these issues day in and day out. This is a very, very accessible book on, on the body, how to deal with, does it matter? Does body image matter? Do you present yourself very differently from who you are, in the real world? Do you present yourself very differently on social media? What are eating disorders? What is gender identity? What is body dysmorphia? What is negative body image? And I know, like, a lot of our kids grapple with these issues, a lot of our teenagers. So we did think it was important in this collection of nonfiction to include some excellent books on gender and sexuality meant for 13 plus year olds and all teachers, parents, librarians that interact with children, teenagers, and young adults who are older than that as well. This one, of course, the last one, priced at 499 rupees, but it's really a treasure for those of you who actually engage with teenagers. We have, of course, several other books, but we've had to leave them out, all of them up in our bazaar. And like I said, nonfiction books typically being slightly more expensive, please do make use of our 2020 offer. If you pick up books over 2,000 rupees, there is a 20% discount available on these books. This offer valid from November 20th to December 20th. And we really hope you'll make use of these offers. Quickly, before we close for the day, just telling you about a couple of new arrivals that have come on our shelves. And I'm just going to breeze through it because I know it's close to lunchtime. But for all of you who love the wonky donkey and, the pinky donkey, right? The dinky donkey, there's this one, which is the Grinny Granny donkey, which is absolutely such a delightful new addition in that series. This one, again, written by Craig Smith and illustrated by Cads Cowley, published by Scholastic, priced at 350 rupees. Another new one that came into our shelves a little after Diwali, though, called Binny's Diwali by Thriti Umrigar and illustrated by Nidhi Chanani. Why do we know Nidhi Chanani? Because Pashmina, that wonderful graphic novel for teenagers, she's the one who wrote and illustrated that one. Binny's Diwali is also illustrated by Nidhi Chanani. Lovely picture book about Diwali, and published in a handsome hardback edition. Again, published by Scholastic and priced at 499 rupees. Very quickly, this is a book that a lot of people have been writing in and asking us about, called Myths and Legends from Around the World by that wonderful writer on gender for children called Soumya Rajendran. This, of course, is not a book on gender, but has compiled some excellent myths and legends from across the world. The two picture books that we recommended to you for the youngest of readers, the Grinny Granny Donkey, works for children as young as 2 years old because you're going to narrate a really funny story to them. Binny's Diwali for 4+ year olds, and Myths and Legends, we would say, for 8+ year olds, of myths and legends from different parts of the world. I can see this just came in yesterday, I think, basically, right? I can see stories from China, from Africa, from Greece, from the Maori people, from Persia, from Native Americans, a lovely collection of myths and legends.
Just open the box and we grab them.
So Muttaba says, we've literally just opened the box and grabbed these books out of it to present them. This one, Bena Summer by Shibal Bhartiya, a new one from HarperCollins, which is the story of 8-year-old Benazir. Bena is 8-year-old Benazir and is perhaps one of the happiest children you can meet, fond of limericks, fond of raw mangoes, fond of jalebis, just like a lot of children we know in our lives. She's surrounded by friends and family, and her life and childhood is idyllic. However, one summer, that bubble bursts. What happens is for you to read, and actually for us to read as well and find out. This one published by HarperCollins and priced at 299 rupees. And I can't wait. This is what I'm going to read this weekend because I just love Jessica Townsend and her Nevermore books. They are possibly the most delightful fantasy books I've read in recent times. And this one called Hollowpox, The Hunt for Morrigan Crow. And if you've read the Nevermore series, you're all already familiar with Jessica Townsend's Nevermore. There is the Nevermore book 1. There's Wondersmith, which is the second book in the series, and Hollowpox. I can't tell you how eagerly I'm waiting to read this one this weekend, published by Hachette and priced at 599 rupees. For those of you who love Nevermore, this is a must read. And there we are at the end of our show. So we, of course, always eating into your lunchtime. So, our offer going up there for you again. Please do consider picking books up from us in the course of this month, 1 month. Joanne Saldana saying, currently reading this. I'm a huge Nevermore fan. Yay! Nevermore, they are just brilliant. Jessica Townsend's books are just brilliant. David Williams, and I'm just going to breeze through these because it's close to lunchtime. Glad to know that mealtime still remains the prime event of the day. Great stream, great interview, but now we need to eat. Oh, there you go, David. We're just going to say hello to all our friends who watch and let you grab that lunch. Unplugged Connect, Gayatri B. Mambra, Deepa Balsawar, how delighted we are to see you. Nikki Girl, Rahul RG, Stories from Stones, that's Devika Karyappa. We're so glad you were here watching us on the feed. Goya's Tales, This Mum Life, Ma Janaki, lovely to see you here, Janaki Sabesh. Halfling Rogue, okay. Halfling Rogue book, Pickle.in, Nitisha, Shruti Sri Raghunath, delighted to see you after a long time. Pooja Jain, Sunila Kulkarni Gupte, Sulakshana Mukherjee, Jyoti Narayan, what a pleasure. Sunila, you're saying, thank you, Vidya and team, for a fabulous session. Just loved it. Thank you so much for the thumbs up. Joanne Saldana, as always, brilliant recommendations. Thank you, FR and Vidya. Thank you for being with us, Joanne. Jyoti Narayan from the Book Valley, is a pleasure. Sarvam Kali Muttama's cousin, so glad you joined us. Anasuya Mishra from the Teachers Collective, lovely to see you. Shalini Malhotra, Jisha Jo, Aryansh Agarwal, please do write to us and we'll make more recommendations for you. But in the end, before you dig into your lunch, always make sure that there are non-fiction books to dig into in your collection of books. Thank you so much for joining us this Saturday. We'll be back next Saturday with a brand new Bazaar. Bye-bye.